You lack boundaries. You shudder at the idea of someone being angry. You feel like you are the peacemaker in the group. It's up to you to fix everything. And you are basically a feather in the wind because your mood is dependent upon the moods of others. And there comes to a point where a codependent person will eventually crash because there's nothing else left to give. In my case, I was obviously below the veil of consciousness, as I like to say. And I thought that if I denied my needs and I took care of everybody else, then everybody would behave a certain way. And certainly they would love me, which is what I was programmed to do, was to cater to other people. And yes, if I cater to you, you're going to cater to me, right? Wrong. If I take care of you, you're naturally going to take care of me, right? Wrong. If I bend over backwards and don't complain, eventually you're going to pat me on the back and say, wow, you're a really good girl, right? Wrong. That doesn't work that way. And what we discover as codependents is that we're living below the veil of consciousness through this brainwashed childhood programming. We see the world and ourselves in a corrupt way, which affects our behaviors, which is rooted in an identity issue because we don't have a self. And it affects us in relationships with other people and ourselves. So it is us. When you have codependency, it is you. You can't escape it. And it's awful. It's absolutely awful. And people live this way for their entire lifetimes. My mother died as a unrecovered codependent adult child of 2 alcoholic parents and never broke through and never broke free. And so while I was recovering, I realized that I was feeling very topsy-turvy, and it was scary to think that the thoughts in my head were corrupt, and it was frightening to think that this was all on me, like I had an identity issue. So that meant that the way I viewed myself was faulty, and the way I viewed other people was faulty, and so it was all on me to fix this, whatever this thing was. And so I developed these anchoring thoughts, which I eventually, when I wrote Codependent Now What? It's Not You, It's Programming, I turned them into commandments. And you will be able to, in the description box, I have a free link that you can download the commandments for yourself. Now, the reason I wrote them was because, like I said, they became anchoring thoughts that I would remember, like the 10 Commandments, that was like, kept me on track. Because it was so confusing to process what I needed to process at the time and to heal myself and to heal from codependent thoughts. So I want to run through them for you, and please feel free to download a copy of them, with the link below. So the first one is, thou shalt not have false gods before me. I shall not honor someone else's opinion of me over my own divine opinion of me. My opinion of me must take precedence over someone else's opinion of me. When you're a codependent, you make someone else your God. You can make money your God. You can make success your God. You can make being a rescuer your God. You can make this idea that you feel worthy if you are putting everyone else before you. Like, I have coached people who it was so difficult for them. Many nurses and firemen and rescuers, first responders suffer from this because they feel like it's their job to take care of other people. But you can wrap your identity up into that sense of self. And what you're doing is you're ignoring yourself. So this identity, this rescuer identity, can actually become a false god that you give into. And what you're doing is you become a doormat for other people. So it's really important that your opinion of you must take precedence over someone else's opinion of you, and that you correct your opinion of you, and that you do not have a false god before you. Number 2, thou shalt not lie. I shall not say yes when I mean no, and no when I mean yes. I must learn to be my truth, to tell my truth, and to speak my truth, even if others wish for me to lie. When you're codependent, you struggle with saying no. You feel like it's your responsibility to say yes. So you're exhausted, right? You want to crawl into bed after a 10 or 12-hour day, and your friend calls, she's had a problem with her boyfriend who has a drug issue, and rather than say, this is not a good time, I've worked all day, you say, okay, I'll be right there. And so you don't want to go, and you know that your friend doesn't listen to any advice you give her anyway. You know you're just going to sit up and basically be her sounding board. She's going to go right back to this guy in the morning anyway. But you don't tell her that. And instead you say, sure, I'll be right there. So commandment number 2 is learning to say no when you mean no and yes when you mean yes. Number 3, thou shalt rock the boat if necessary. I shall not ignore or deny what I believe to be true for the sake of keeping others happy, calm, content, or happy. So codependents are afraid to rock the boat. They fear making other people angry. Again, they're the peacemakers in the group. And so if someone's angry at you, you're the one that sits with it and it bothers you, and you're generally the person that makes the first move. You don't like silence, and so you might go over and be the first one to say, hey, listen, I'm sorry, this is silly. And you fall on the sword for the sake of a relationship, very oftentimes for someone who would never do that for you. So we're learning to rock the boat if necessary, to tell our truth, and to not have false gods before ourselves. Number 4, thou shalt not obsess about what others think about thee. I shall teach my mind to focus on my opinion of myself, career, relationship, success, body, recovery, and life choices. So when we're codependent, remember we have an identity issue. So our identity issue is rooted in what we think other people think, which means that that's a moving target. That's why we never feel safe. That's why we never feel peaceful. And that's why we never feel calm, because we're basing our sense of self on what we think other people think. And so if you've attracted a narcissist into your life, somebody who will exploit you, somebody who feels entitled to exploit you, and who has empathy impairment, their opinion of you is a moving target. You will chase that opinion of you, right? And you will obsess about what they think, and they will enjoy it. So what we're learning to do in codependent recovery is we're learning to not obsess about what other people think about us. And we're learning to worry more about what we think about us. Number 5, thou shalt not seek the approval or permission to be. So I shall learn to seek the approval of my inner being first and honor Spirit's guidance, even if what I wish for is not what others wish or want for me, them, or us. So we're learning to put away this need for approval. So oftentimes codependents look for permission to feel what they feel. I was in a dysfunctional marriage for a lot longer than I needed to be, because below the veil of consciousness, I didn't know the thought was there. It was a link that stunk. I call them the links that stink. But there was a thought that was there, a belief that was running, that I needed this person's permission to be unhappy. I needed his permission to want to get a divorce. I needed his permission to feel what I felt. And so number 5 is we're learning to stop seeking the approval and permission to be ourselves in other people. We're learning to honor how we feel. Number 6, thou shalt learn to honor the temple of thy divine spirit. I shall learn to treat my physical body as the divine extension of God's source that it is. I shall learn to thank my heart, my liver, kidneys, pancreas, intestines, skin, eyes, ears, mouth, throat, and chakra system for allowing my spirit the opportunity to experience my spiritual journey through this divine physical apparatus, my divine temple. So you see me here, right? But this is not who I am. My spirit, my essence is speaking to you and hoping to reach your spirit and your essence. We live in a 3D world. The earth is a 3D experience. I need a 3D body to express my spiritual self through this 3D experience. And so learning to honor your divine temple is very, very important in codependent recovery, because we abuse our bodies. We work our fingers to the bone. We exhaust ourselves taking care of other people. And sometimes we're having sex with people just to gain approval. Sometimes we're having sex with people that we don't like very much. Sometimes we're attracting people into our lives that disrespect our bodies, and we have a difficult time saying, hey, no, I don't want that anymore, and my opinion of this has changed. So we have a difficult time honoring ourselves. So number 6 is about honoring your divine temple, your divine body, which houses your spiritual self. So number 7, thou shalt learn to trust anxiety. I shall learn to use anxiety as an indicator that my thoughts or my body are not in alignment with my true destiny. I shall learn to trust when I do not feel well around others as a sign that I may be in the company of people who do not resonate with my spirit's beingness. I shall trust when I feel like someone has punched me in the gut. On a vibrational, emotional, and spiritual level, they probably have wounded me. I will use this guidance to help me navigate throughout my life and learn to avoid people who are insensitive, cruel, manipulative, judgmental, or unkind. So we're learning to, rather than react to our anxiety, we're learning to observe from a higher state of awareness. We're coming up and out of the amygdala. We're not as reactive anymore. And we're saying, body, what are you trying to tell me right now? And so now remember, we have trouble with identity. We have trouble with our behaviors and our relationships. And so we might feel like, no, I don't want to be around this person, but we will struggle to claim that because we have a problem with identity. We have a problem with the self and honoring the self and respecting the self. So, but it's important to know that your body is always going to send you signals about what is safe and unsafe. What we're learning to do is honor how we feel along the way so that when we experience this anxiety, we're learning to honor it instead of ignore it and push it away, or we're afraid to make someone angry, because when you're a codependent, you have anxiety about someone, you might have to say no, you might have to rock the boat, and you might have to make this person angry. And that's everything that you're afraid of. That is why healing from codependency is a heroic journey. So learn to trust your anxiety. Number 8, thou shalt seek contentment and stillness and avoid chaos, unpredictability, indifference, or abuse. I shall seek to remove myself from situations, conversations, and stories and images and people who will elicit tension, unhappiness, anger, or depression in me. I shall learn to take responsibility for my gut reactions and extract myself from situations rather than contribute to ones that cause my being to be out of alignment with contentment. So as we're healing from codependency, we're recognizing how we have contributed to relationships that are unhealthy. We are recognizing that we haven't set a boundary. We're recognizing now we're honoring our anxiety and we're saying, wow, maybe I don't like that conversation, or maybe I don't believe in that train of thought, or maybe I don't want to go there, or maybe I don't want to watch this, right? And so now instead of pushing it away, we're allowing it to come up and we're saying, this really is how I feel. And then we're learning to say in the 3D world, we're learning to act on what we feel. We're speaking up for our true self, which is helping us revamp our identity or our sense of self. And we're saying, no, I'd rather seek contentment. I would rather be alone. I would rather not do this. And so you're honoring what's showing up in the 3D world. And if it's unpredictable, unsafe, and it's creating chaos, you're learning to say no. Number 9, thou shalt learn to accept others have rights to their own reality of thee, even if their reality is faulty, hurtful, discouraging, disproving, shameful, and wrong. I shall learn to accept that I have no right to control how other people think, feel, and or behave. I shall learn to honor how other people feel, how they think, rather than engage in trying to change how they feel. I shall learn to walk away from people who fail to see the good in me. And so what we do as codependents, number 1, we're attracting unhealthy relationships. We're not setting boundaries. So most often we're attracting people who are unkind and abusive and are trying to exploit us in some way. Our kindness, our money, our time, whatever. And we have a difficult time saying no. So when we start to say no, we have to start taking responsibility for being uncomfortable when we start saying no. And we have to start accepting what we cannot change. Codependents go into relationships thinking, I'm going to be so good and then I'm going to be able to change this person. Or, my husband's an alcoholic, but, as long as I stay, eventually he'll see the error in this and he'll stop drinking from me. It's not going to happen, right? And so we're learning to accept that other people are going to be angry when we start creating a new identity. When we start, our new identity is rooted in I am enough instead of I am not enough. And we're learning to accept that we can't control people. Number 10 is thou shalt not judge thy neighbor. So I shall learn to turn the cheek and walk away rather than to contribute to the negative vibration and judgment of others. I shall learn to bless all that is and to navigate my thoughts, actions, and intentions according to what my spirit discerns as either in alignment with my divine being or out of alignment with my divine being. So we're learning that we're changing our identity. We're going from I am not enough to I am enough. We are changing our behavior. We're learning to not be controlling. We're learning to be accepting and surrendering. And we're learning to not be judgmental of people that we can't change. And instead we're saying, okay, namaste. I can walk away in love and light. We're learning to understand that we don't have to judge people because they don't see good in us. And instead, we are learning to pay attention to how we feel about this person. We have a right to change friends. We have a right to change neighborhoods. We have a right to set boundaries. And we have a right to say no to people who are not in alignment with our vision for ourselves and our life. And that is your right. And we don't have to do it begging that the other person hears us, begging for permission to feel the way we feel. We're allowed to just feel what we feel, discern what we feel, and do what we want to do about how we feel. A word of caution, when you start healing from codependency and you stop being what everybody else wants you to be, things get a little messy. People can tend to be pissy. If you're dealing with someone who is highly narcissistic, you have to be careful about how abusive they might end up being. And the first priority is to make sure that you're safe. If you're dealing with somebody who is psychologically abusive, that is highly, highly damaging and to your mental health. And again, you have to make sure that you're safe. I believe that it's just as important to be psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually safe as it is to be physically safe. And so I hope that these 10 commandments, these 10 codependency commandments, are anchoring thoughts that you can use as you learn to navigate through creating a new identity for yourself. A codependent's identity is rooted in I am not enough. And as we heal, that has to shift. It has to shift to, wait, I am enough. All of these faulty subconscious beliefs were programmed into me before I was 7 years old. You know, I learned to believe that I wasn't enough because of this and this and this, but it's not true. And if you stay on this path long enough and you commit yourself to this journey, you can heal your life. Codependency can be corrected. But remember, you're going to have to address how you see yourself, which is your identity. You're going to have to fix the behaviors that recreate these situations. And ultimately, you have to shift the relationship that you have with yourself before you can shift the relationships that you have with other people.
If you love this content, don't forget to check out the next video, and you can go to my website and take the codependency quiz. So I made a list, so I want to share that with you. So the first question is, what are your greatest weaknesses? So what are you struggling with? So when it comes to a narcissist pretty much believes that they're handling things pretty well because they lack self-awareness and self-reflection. Even though they're aware of self, when I mean self-awareness, the ability to observe the way we act or the person that we are reacts in time and space, how we respond to other people, where we have the ability to be objective and to detach from our behavior. And in that space, we're free to change our behavior. So narcissists don't do that. They're very primal. So their emotions are activated and they look to blame, to guilt, to shame, to retaliate against whoever their target is.